All right, everybody, it's weekend review time here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Week 9, period 8, whatever the hell you want to call it. We are reviewing it. We'll get you all the ads, the drops, the holds, the watch lists, the injury board, which is swelling a tad again. Not gigantic. It's not like it was before we had this sort of low tide for the NBA Cup, but it is a non-significant. No, it is significant. Yeah, I can do this right. I'm Dan Bespris. I shouldn't have said that right after flubbering my way through a bunch of words, but that's where we got to. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Bespris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. If you have an Old Man Squad fantasy, boy, do I have the page for you. But seriously, though, find me on social media. We do so much stuff over there, and it's critically important that you are on social if you want to make sure you're getting the NBA news before everybody else. If you're new to the proceedings, first of all, hit the like button, rate the show, subscribe. Obviously, that's the big one. Subscribe. It's so easy to hit the button. Subscribe. 2 Saturdays in a row we've done this weekend review show. Perhaps a new tradition. Anyway, we'll see how this schedule shakes out. But as it stands for now, again, you got the social media stuff. You've done the liking and the rating. You've done all of that. So let me just give you a little bit of a start of a rundown on this. We start with the injury replacement board, which this might actually be the whole board. We might have fit it on one page this time. We do that first, as I've told you many times, because in the past, I did it last, and then as we were working through the ads and the drops and the holds, and I did those shows live, so that was part of it, but in the chat room was just like, where's this guy? Where's this guy? Where's this guy? And then I was like, they're all on the injury board, which I also feel like I need to add this one little caveat because people on Twitter get really upset anytime I call someone an injury ad. It's not a slight. It's not a diss. It's not a put down. It's okay for a guy to have value because someone else is hurt. That's okay. That can be their lot in life. And it's not a bad thing to say. It's just a statement of fact. I'm not saying, oh, they're good, they're bad. Oh, they're bad because they need someone to get hurt. No, that's just the way the rotations are on a team. It's just the way their fantasy stat set translates. So let's go through a few of these names, and then we'll pivot back around and tell you about our sponsor, which has been unbelievably supportive for us lately. So want to make sure they get their just shout-outs. Goga Batadze and Ayo Dosunmu are my favorite injury plays right now. Goga because there's no Franz. Yes, we're Americanizing this one. No France, no Paolo. And Goga's been crushing it. Very safe center play, top 75, top 80 type of guy. Ayo Dosunmu with a usage guy out, although word is that Josh Giddey is close. I believe he said, and I saw this as beat reporter saying that he was targeting Monday, so we might not have that long to really celebrate Ayo, who, again, was fine before Giddey went down. The minutes were there, but the usage wasn't unless Giddey or Levine or Kobe or whoever was not in the lineup. Grady Dick's been a pretty good one, but it sounds like RJ Barrett is not, he was sick, so he could be back at any moment. And then Grady goes back to being not all that impressive. Ben Simmons is kind of a recent fun one. I don't know what his role is going to look like when Cam Thomas comes back. So, I don't want to get my hopes too high. And obviously his body hasn't been able to take the pounding of a 30-minute per game stint for longer than about 3 weeks in half a decade. So I don't know that there's any reason to believe that it can now all of a sudden. But in the meantime, he's doing quite well. Vasilije Micic was a nice fill-in with no LaMelo and no Brandon Miller. LaMelo will be back for Charlotte's next ball game. We don't know the status of Brandon Miller, so he might come off the list by then. Russell Westbrook was on this board for Christian Braun, but I left him on here because he was pretty good even when Braun came back. And we'll talk more about Russ later on in today's show. Nick Richards was a fill-in for Mark Williams when he sits due to rest, but Mark seems to be doing fine, so otherwise Nick Richards needs to be punted into the sky. No Luka Doncic. Spencer Dinwiddie's been a really nice fill-in for Luka, although Kyrie's back, so we'll see how that evens out. But I think Spencer's the guy that you probably want to play with there. If indeed Luka misses more than a couple of games, and if you wanted to see how Spencer does with Kyrie in and Luka out, that's fine. You don't have to roll the dice if you don't want to, I think there's a decent chance that he's okay. Malcolm Brogdon is a nice play for Washington. I think some of that's because Kyle Kuzma is out. That's why I have him on the injury board. It's possible that Brogdon will be okay even after Kuzma comes back. It's also possible that Brogdon is the injury board because he's typically injured and he has one of each. He walks into the injury restaurant and orders one of everything. Larry Nance Jr. is an awesome one right now for Onyeka Okongwu. He was brilliant in that first opportunity. He's not going to be that good most nights, so sadly, don't get used to that one. Benedict Mathurin has been sort of downgraded a bit. He's still streamable, but meh in how good he's been with Aaron Nesmith out. Forgot to take Andre Drummond off the list because Joel Embiid came back. Just erase that one. Yeah, just pretend that one's not there. In fact, don't pretend. We're going to erase it so you guys can see it. There we go. He's gone. Goodbye, Andre Drummond. I didn't really want him anyway. Justin Champagnie in Washington. It still seems like there's enough there. But again, he's sort of been downgraded a bit. Ochai Agbaji was good with RJ Barrett out. Najee Marshall was not as good with Luka out, but I think he probably gets enough shots in the next one. Kelly Oubre Jr. is playing his butt off right now. He's not going to shoot as well as he did in their Friday evening game every night. But Jared McCain being out long-term and Caleb Martin still not back has definitely opened things up for Kelly, and he has burst through that window. Jonathan Mobo is a low-tide play in Toronto. He got plenty of minutes, though, and so that sometimes is enough. More of a schedule play, I think. And Grayson Allen with Devin Booker likely to miss a couple of weeks with a sore groin situation. Sore groin situation would be the plaque I would put on my door if I had actually completed med school and gone into urology. Grayson Allen, I think, is going to finally do enough here. He almost had a double-double in his last ball game, and so I feel pretty good about Grayson with Booker on this shelf. And BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA and college basketball to NHL and to UFC. So head to BetOnline today, and folks, don't forget to use our new promo code. That's BELIEVE, BLEA, Victor, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. What's the next page, Dan? Well, I'm glad you asked. These are the ads with one of my children shrieking like a banshee. Hello, winter break. These are ads. If you're watching along, these ads have asterisks next to their names. Most of you guys know what this means by now, but for those that are coming up for the first time, welcome. We love to have you. Click the like and subscribe buttons while you're here. The asterisk represents how many weeks they've been on the ads board. Once a player is at 4 weeks, they get retired to the rest of season board. We'll have another page for that coming up. So the newest name on the ads board is Russell Westbrook. There haven't been many names this week because there haven't been many games this week. But Russ, if you're in punt free throw mode, I think you can go ahead and add him. I don't know that he's going to do enough if you're not punting free throw. And frankly, even with the big games, he's still outside the top 100 without a free throw punt because he's been quite bad at foul shooting, as per usual. But his other stuff has been really, really good. He's scoring at a high clip because of Jokic. The assists are always there. The rebounds are pretty good. He's getting some steals. But he's also going to tank you in one category. Of course, if anybody's out for the Nuggets, the situation gets markedly better. But we're going to go ahead and put him on there as an ad for punt free throw, and I feel okay about that. Malik Monk on here for the second time. I mean, we'll just keep these guys on there as long as nothing changes for them. I would presume that if Monk remains in the starting lineup for the Kings, he'll just be on this ads board until he gets retired to the rest of season winners table. Zach Edey, second week for him. Mark Williams, third week on the ads board. Obviously, he's rostered by now, as are all of these guys. Herb Jones, Khris Middleton, Yves Missi, and Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins now hitting 4 weeks. There was a 1 week break in there when he was injured. So it's like 4 ad boards over 5 weeks, and he'll be on the next page. Nope, that's the wrong one. Not the next page. It's the page after the next page. The one I was referencing was the rest of season table, but that's coming up in a minute. Here are the updates on prior ads names, guys that are no longer on the ads board. Drop after 1 week, Cason Wallace. I know. It stinks. But OKC's kind of gone back to the mix and match mode, and Cason hasn't been good the last 2 or 3 games. You can get rid of him. He only played 23 minutes on Friday night. Alex Caruso played 25 and a half, which, man, if that held, I'd be all over Alex Caruso, like in a gross and sexy way. But, I mean, you're more concerned with what do I think about Cason Wallace. He's not good enough right now, even in a punt points mode. Like, we needed the 30-plus minutes. The consistency was how he made the ads board, because he was like at 5-6 games in a row where he was playing 30 minutes a night, and now that has dried up. You can drop Mike Conley. This one hurts me because I do still think that Conley's got it in the system to go out there and be the Mike Conley he was last year. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that the Wolves haven't asked him to go be the Mike Conley from last year. And I know that, like, the whole plan was keep him fresh, let him have a bigger role as they get towards playoff mode. But the Wolves have been quite bad. Like, truly terrible offensively so far this year. And Ant-Man is coming out and talking about it. And there was he had a different media quote last week or a week and a half ago where it was like, yeah, me and Mike, we'd been talking, trying to get on the same page. Like, that's Mike Conley he's talking about. That's the Mike. So we know Conley's still a leader on this team. And I don't think that he just, like, turned bad season over season. I think they're trying to limit the situation. The problem is that the pieces just don't match. You know, Conley made sense with Cat and not as much with Julius Randle. So they got to sort this out. I still think that at some point the Wolves are just like, Conley, we need you. You got to go lead this thing again, because this is a ship without a captain, basically. But right now, he's not shooting the ball well, and that's hurting him, obviously, because, you know, flow of the offense and all that. And as long as the minutes are not getting back up into the 30 range, there just isn't really much in the way of upside. I kind of feel the same way about Conley right now as I do about Jonas Valanciunas, which is like, even if things do start to get a little bit better, we're still talking about 90, top 85, top 90 range is kind of like a better case scenario. So that's a roster spot that would probably in head-to-head be better used streaming, trying to find somebody that's better than that on a week-to-week basis or just plays more games. And in Roto, there really isn't that much of a reason to squat on him because there isn't much upside there. So why bench him when you could just drop him and pick up one of our lovely injury replacement guys that we already talked about a minute ago? And on the very worried list, Bogdan Bogdanovic, I'm desperately trying to hold on. I know on a show earlier this week, I was like, I think we can probably drop him. And honestly, we probably can drop him. I'm just trying not to, if at all possible. Reason being, there is a little bit of upside in Bogey that I don't think that there is in some of these other guys we're talking about. But for Bogdanovic, he's shooting 40.5%. He's only taking 10 shots a game. He's just not involved. And I don't think he's quite fully healthy yet. I mean, a lot of it is eye test. He's not moving all that great. He just looks sort of slow and disengaged. And, you know, DeAndre Hunter is more engaged and Jalen Johnson is more engaged. And at some point, I do think Bogey comes around, but I'm just not willing to wait on it. Because it's an indefinite wait. And now the board that I was talking about a minute ago, these are the rest of season guys we've enjoyed so far on these weekly shows. From week 1, Christian Braun, Dyson Daniels, and Bilal Coulibaly. From week 3, Tari Eason, PJ Washington, and a punt field goaling Shaedon Sharpe. And from week 5, after the long injury, DeAndre Hunter was a re-add. Probably should have put a little asterisk next to his name because he was on early, and then he was off for a while because he was out and we had no idea when he was going to play again. And then he came back and he's been very good for about the last 4 weeks in a row after that. All right, we're into time to hold, time to worry, time to cut. That's the next 3 chunks here on the board. And again, I'll try to pause on the players that I think deserve maybe a little bit more of our attention on these ones. Time to hold, Jeremy Sohan. Okay, this page is going to have some very easy ones and some tougher ones. The time to hold board, typically guys that I think are sort of obvious yes hold that I've been asked about at some point over the last couple of weeks, basically. And someone was like, what do I do with Jeremy Sohan? I'm like, well, I think it's a pretty clear hold. And then he's been really good last 2 or 3 games, so that probably is a bit of a moot point on him. Collin Sexton, who's been on the I'm so freaking close to sending him out to pasture list for so freaking long, managed to get himself back onto the holds board. Congratulations, Collin Sexton. You've done it. By George, I think he's done it. And it was just one good game, and one good game doth not a season make. But it was at least the start of something, and so now he's a much more clear hold. Here's a tougher one. I think Naz Reid is a clear hold. And it's not because I think he's doing particularly well. He's not, and he's been bad lately in particular. I just still think that the Wolves have this sort of like, there's a tipping point coming for this team. And I don't know who's going to be the butt of it, but it's coming. Whether that means more Naz Reid, more Mike Conley, less Julius Randle, less Rudy Gobert. I don't know. I really like, there's a lot of different ways that this thing could go. Or it could just be that any one of like 4 guys misses a game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker being the least important of them. Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle. So 4+. If any of those guys misses a game, it's an extra anywhere from 1 to like 7 minutes for Naz Reid. And at some point, I just talked about this on a different show, but I'll repeat myself because I don't know who watches each one. When we handicapped Naz Reid to start the year, part of the equation was this guy's going to get to start some number of games. Whatever number Rudy Gobert misses, he starts. Probably starts games that Julius Randle misses, but even if he doesn't, even if they go small, he's still going to get more playing time in those ones. And so there was this calculation of, okay, if Gobert misses 10 games and Randle misses 10 games and Anthony Edwards misses 4 games and Jaden McDaniels misses 5 to 15 games or something, that some combination of those would create like 20 to 25 bonus games for Naz Reid, where he's not just the backup 4-5, which I thought would probably be enough to make him playable. Right now, it's not really the case. It was a couple weeks ago. He's hovering right on the borderline, but we still haven't hit any of the, the nitrous, any of the boost. Jabari Smith Jr. is a little bit of that same story. He's been playing better lately, and some of that's because Tari Eason's been on the shelf, so there isn't really someone coming for his minutes in this last little stretch. And Tari's been kind of in and out of the lineup a tad. But it's kind of the same thing. Like, Jabari Smith Jr. is on a team that's been inordinately healthy. That doesn't happen in the NBA. Everybody misses something. Everybody misses a game at some point along the way. The Rockets are not like a particularly robust, ultra-healthy I guess Jalen Green tends to play pretty much every ball game, but Dylan Brooks gets himself banged up, and Freddie VanVleet gets himself banged up, although that one doesn't have quite the same bearing as much as it does on Amen Thompson, who's also on this list for the same reasons. So mush them together if you like. Someone's going to miss a game. Şengün's going to miss a game. Someone's going to catch a flu, and they're going to give it to all their teammates. Someone's going to turn an ankle. And at some point, somebody on that Rockets team is going to miss 4 games in a row. And then it's go time for Amen Thompson and Tari Eason and whoever the hell else is left there. Because the Rockets are basically playing like a 7+ heavy rotation. If you take any one player out of that, that's a lot of extra stuff for the other ones, and not as much for the guys who are already playing 35 minutes a night. It's going to be more for the guys playing 24, 26, whatever. Christian Braun is on my holds list. He's come back to earth a little bit, as we kind of figured he would, and got off to a crazy hot start this year. He's still playing well by and large. Top 75 player on the year, more like, 100-ish over the last little bit. That's still a hold. Jusuf Nurkic has been good over the last 2 weeks, mostly because he's made his foul shots over the last 2 weeks. He's at 75% during that haul. So the double-double with a steal and a block doesn't have something sagging on it quite so much, although the turnovers are weirdly high. Still, he looks healthier. He's playing closer to 30 minutes, and if he's up around 30, then I'm in the Nurkic business. My great fear for him this season, frankly, was that Mason Plumlee was going to come take at least 18 center minutes. So 30 was like the best night you could get. And lately, they've been rolling with a little extra Nurk, and some of that might be because they're missing some of their star guys. Anyway, Clint Capella. So the thing that we said would happen happened, which is that he was cold to start the year. He went on a run. Now he's cooled off again. I believe Clint Capella ends up as kind of a filler level guy for 9 category players. He is rosterable and startable if you're in a punt free throw build, which I'm generally not, but I do realize that some cross section of you guys is. And Capella belongs on your rosters and not mine. Dennis Schroeder. I think he deserves just a little bit more time. We saw one game in Golden State. I was actually I know the game was awful and they lost by 50, so it doesn't get a whole lot worse than that. However, I was actually kind of pleased with what I saw out of Schroeder. He had 5 assists. He took 12 shots in kind of limited action. It seems like they want him to be heavily involved. Now, his game doesn't translate to 9-cat all that great because he's not a high steals guy. He's typically not a high threes guy, although he has upped that a bit, and that's going to drive his field goal percent even farther south. But they need someone else that can get assists besides Draymond, who's looking super old lately, and Steph. And Schroeder's going to kind of have to be that guy. And then we already talked about Amen Thompson, so I think we can just jump along to the time to worry page. Already talked about Bogdan Bogdanovic back up on one of the earlier boards. The other worry guys are Jrue Holiday, who just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and the steals and blocks are not really coming around, and the field goal percent is not really coming around. I still think... Now, the difference for me between someone like Jrue Holiday and someone like Mike Conley is that with Conley, the role is just wrong right now. He's at 25 minutes a game, and the field goal percent is 34, which, I mean, that's probably a reason to actually hang on to Conley. But Jrue Holiday's ranked right next to him, playing 31 minutes a game. The minutes are there. The field goal percent is down. The steals and blocks are still down. Yeah, he's going to get some rest days mixed in. It just feels like it's an easier path for Jrue to get back to where we need him to be. Where with Conley, the path is they got to give him another 3 to 4 minutes a night right now. And he's got to remember how to shoot, but I do think that'll happen at some point. Jonas Valanciunas is the next name on the worry board. He's at number 138 now. His minutes have fallen off a cliff while the Wizards kind of shrink wrap him for a trade, because the worst thing that could happen here would be JV gets hurt and then the Wizards can't move him. They know they're going to get something for him. This was the plan. Sign him, trade him. There are teams that want him. Go get something. They're posturing. They're saying they're going to keep him, but stop it. The reason that I'm leaning actually towards a drop on Valanciunas is because even no matter where he goes, he's almost definitely not going to be a full-time starting center. You know, the Lakers, he'd be the backup center. He'd play 20 minutes. There'd be plenty of opportunity for him there, but it would be just like this. 8 and some odd shots in 20 minutes. That's the best case scenario for him. I legitimately can't think of a team that would bring him in and just be like, JV, you're the guy. Get nuts. Not a contending team, at least, and nobody else is going to trade for him. So Valanciunas, limited upside. Jalen Duren is on the worry board. Less so right now because Isaiah Stewart is out. But as I've said all year, I think when Duren has a big ball game, you try to shop him. And maybe now's the time when he doesn't really have as competent a backup. Paul Reed is the guy, and Paul actually kind of outplayed Duren in their last game. But I do think at some point here with Stewart shelved, you're going to get a Jalen Duren slightly better ball game, and then that's going to be your move. D'Angelo Russell, I mean, we've talked this one into the ground. He's been terrible so far this year, and his role is bad. But again, like thinking it through, 26 minutes, he's playing 26 and a half minutes a ball game. That should be enough for him. But the threes are down, the shots are down, the steals are down, the assists are down. His role is off. I think he's a threat to get moved. I also think, much like Jalen Duren, these guys are ranked like in the 170 range. There's enough reason to just try to grind it out. You know, for D'Lo, it's not like there's something you could punt that'll magically make this better. Same thing with Jalen Duren, although punting free throws would certainly help. You're just hoping for something to give. I don't know what the hell he's going to give with Duren. He's going to have to figure out how to play defense. For D'Lo, an injury in front of him would certainly do the trick. A trade would do the trick. Lakers losing streak would do the trick. There's a lot of things that could still come back the right way. And rather than drop him for like an injury replacement guy, I'd rather just see if I can wear this one and hope that it pivots someplace. I have Drew Holiday on the list twice. Why didn't one of you tell me? Daniel Gafford is the last name on the worry board. His minutes are trending the wrong way lately, mostly because Derek Lively's minutes are trending the right way. Gafford now dipping under 20, not for the season. He's right at 20 for the season. And so if he hits 20, he's still playable. Certainly an injury to Lively would help unlock that, but lately he's not getting enough minutes to be the guy. I'm going to hold on because, again, there's a lot of ways for him to really kind of get cooking because he's still Daniel Gafford and he still puts up fantasy value real freaking fast, but he's not doing it right now. And so if you ended up needing to go another way, I would kind of understand. But try your best on these guys on this board to hang on as long as humanly possible because they're better than the guys you're looking to pick up just at basketball. And the Cutboard. We already talked about Cason Wallace and Mike Conley, a couple of guys that were injured last week when we talked about this. Jonathan Isaac and Robert Williams now have been moved from an injury let's wait and see board to the Cutboard because Isaac isn't playing that much. And the Time Lord is in a 3-headed timeshare at the moment. Although you could make an argument to stash Robert Williams. But head-to-head, I don't see how you can hang on right now. Marcus Smart, no. Okongwu was a filler-level guy, and now he's hurt. Wendell Carter Jr. has been bad. You can drop them. Dalton Connect, he's been a drop for a while. I don't know why he's still on this board. I'll take him up by next week. And then Jaden Ivey, who I just don't think is good enough at any one thing to cover up the stuff that he's not that good at. And lately, one of my favorite parts of this show is the watch list, which has 5 names on it right now. And a couple of them I really want to take a second with. Lonzo Ball, who we talked about last week as a watch list name, but I wanted to bring him back around because he did have a 23-minute game mixed in there, but then followed that up with a sub-20-minute game. And this is why I kind of had that barrier of like, he's got to play 24. I know 23 is almost 24. You could just call it a wash and say it basically is, but it isn't. There's something about hitting 24 minutes that says, I'm healthy. And for Lonzo, he's not all the way there. His 18 minutes on the court in Chicago's win over Boston, he was great. He's a plus 10. The team was a plus 10 when he was on the floor. He still is one of their most impactful guys in however many minutes he's playing. But it's got to get to 24. And at that point, I'll get him. I'll add him. Roto, I'm not playing him then. I need to see like the consistent 24 repeated over and over again. And then I'll actually buy in on it. Now, if you pick him up at 24 and he drops down to 21 and then 19 and then 23 and then 25, head-to-head, you could like squeeze by because every little bit counts. It would hurt you, though. Roto, you're waiting. Asar Thompson is on the watch list. He had a really great game when Tobias Harris was out. I would assume that would be doable again the next time Tobias is out, although Thompson's still starting, at least with Jaden Ivey on the shelf. I would assume that Ivey takes that spot back when he returns, most likely in the Pistons' next ball game. And then if we're talking about Asar getting 20 minutes, that ain't going to be enough. But we'll watch list. Alex Caruso watch list. I added him last minute here because Caruso got himself 25.5 minutes in the Thunder win on the road over Miami. 4 points, 3 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Obviously, I'd like to see him do more in the time he's on the floor, but 25 minutes is enough for a lot of defensive stats, and then everything else is just gravy. So you're not adding him, not on one game of 25 minutes, but if it happens again, then Alex Caruso might get his butt elevated from the watch list to something better. Toumani Camara is on the watch list. He's back on one of these little slightly more positive runs. I think he probably profiles more as a filler level guy or kind of like a really good schedule play. He's ranked in the 140s right now. If he goes on a little hot streak, he'll be like a top 80 guy for a couple of ball games. And so is his teammate, Denny Avdia, who had a nice scoring game in only 21 minutes. The reason I like Camara more is because he's playing more. Toumani played 36 minutes in the same game that Avdia played 21. I want the guy who's playing the most minutes on the damn team. Which he did in that ball game, not on the season. He played 2 seconds more than Jeremy Grant in the Blazers win over the Nuggets on Thursday night. 2 seconds. And he had 14 and 8 with 3 steals. And that's the thing. Kamara was a steals specialist early in the year, but he got a few points and a few rebounds, and he was able to sort of collect some things. And so he is a guy that you can see the faint outlines of fantasy value, but he's poor in both percentages, meaning he's really got to play a lot of minutes to get the rebounds and the assists and the steals and the threes and the score, just to outweigh the negatives that he is going to bring to the table. If Kamara can improve on his offensive efficiency in any meaningful way, he could fly into the top 100. I just don't think it's going to happen. Not on a team that's not getting him particularly great looks night to night, although a hot Anthony Simons helps everybody else with spacing. But like, we've seen Kamara at this point. We know he's not going to shoot 55% long-term. We know he's not going to make all of his free throws long-term. He's watch listable, and he's probably streamable, and that's where we will put a pin in his discussion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your Week 9 in review edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Hope you guys took something out of this. These are always fun ones to do. I like to go back and just kind of help my brain reset itself, which is another reason to do these shows. We'll do another one next week, usually Fridays, but with the NBA Cup, I've been pushing it off until Saturday morning. We'll see how the schedule sort of lands. We've got Christmas week, but that's just one day that's weird instead of 2 or 3, which is what we've had the last couple of weeks. So I think that this coming week, week 10, period 9, week 10 should be a relatively normal one. Subscribe, please, on your way out. Hit that button before you click out of the window. Hit that subscribe button. We do multiple shows a day, many days a week. We're trying to do at least 7 to 10 shows every single week, and all just trying things. What's fun? What's interesting? What do you guys like? Like it, comment on it, follow on Twitter at Dan Bespris, and I'll be back with you guys again tomorrow with a weekly preview. We'll get you set up for that Week 10 calendar where streaming becomes a little more normal once again. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. I'm Dan for Old Man Squad. I'll talk to you guys soon.